The slave market smelled like fear and metal. Ethan Cole moved through the crowd with his head down, carrying a bag of salvaged wire he'd found in the recycling tunnels beneath Station Meridian 7. He was 15 years old and hungry, hoping to trade the copper for enough credits to buy dinner. Around him, aliens of every shape and size pushed past. Some had forearms, others floated in containment bubbles, and a few looked almost human except for their silver skin or extra eyes. Ethan had grown up on this station after his parents died in a transport accident. He'd learned quickly that humans meant nothing special here. They weren't strong like the Torvan warriors. They couldn't read minds like the Psionic Collective. They were just average, and average meant invisible. A voice boomed across the market square. Next item, ladies and gentlemen and honored beings of all designations. A genuine dragon from the old worlds. Ethan stopped. He'd never seen a real dragon before. The crowd parted as a huge metal cage rolled forward on anti-gravity platforms. Inside, a creature about the size of a large dog sat with its wings tucked close. Its scales were a dull gray-brown and one wing looked torn and ragged. Around its neck, a thick metal collar glowed with faint symbols that pulsed like a dying heartbeat. The auctioneer, a blue-skinned Velian with too many teeth, gestured dramatically. "Behold, a creature of legend. Feel free to bid generously, my friends." Someone in the crowd laughed. "That thing's half dead. Look at those scales. Where's the fire? Where's the shine?" The auctioneer's smile faltered. "Well, yes, this particular specimen is somewhat diminished. But dragon bone alone is worth—" "I'll give you 50 credits for parts," a mechanical voice called out. A salvage drone hovered forward. The dragon lifted its head. Its eyes were deep gold, ancient and intelligent. They swept across the crowd and for just a moment locked with Ethan's. The boy felt something twist in his chest. The dragon wasn't looking at him with animal fear. It was looking at him like it was waiting for something. 50 credits. Any advance on 50? Anyone? No? The auctioneer's enthusiasm had died completely. Going once, going twice, you know what? Forget it. Not worth the cage space. We'll process it for materials. 2 handlers approached the cage with electric prods. The dragon didn't move, didn't fight. It just kept staring at Ethan with those impossibly old eyes. Ethan's mouth moved before his brain caught up. "Wait, I'll buy it!" The crowd turned to look at him. Several aliens laughed. The auctioneer raised one ridged eyebrow. "You, human boy? You have credits?" Ethan dug into his pocket and pulled out his credit chip. He'd been saving for 3 months. 230 credits. Enough for food for a month, or new boots, or maybe a better sleeping pod. His hand shook as he held it up. 200 credits, he said, trying to sound confident. More laughter rippled through the crowd. The auctioneer looked amused now. Well. The human wants a pet. Sure, boy. 200 credits and the worthless worm is yours. Don't come crying when it bites your hand off. The transaction took less than a minute. Credits transferred, cage ownership signed over to Ethan Cole, resident of Sublevel 12, Section D. The handlers wheeled the cage to the edge of the market and left it there. The crowd moved on, already forgetting about the strange purchase. Ethan approached the cage slowly. Up close, the dragon looked even worse. Its scales were scarred and dull. The torn wing had old burn marks, but those eyes still held that same impossible intelligence. "Hey," Ethan whispered. "I'm Ethan. I don't know why I bought you. I just couldn't let them kill you." The dragon blinked slowly. Its chest rose and fell with steady breathing. Ethan found the cage's control panel and entered the unlock code the auctioneer had provided. The door hissed open. The dragon didn't bolt or attack. It simply stepped out carefully, favoring its injured wing, and sat down in front of Ethan. This close, the boy could see the collar more clearly. The symbols carved into the metal weren't random decorations. They were precise, deliberate, complex. "Those marks," Ethan murmured. "They're writing, aren't they?" The dragon's eyes seemed to brighten slightly. Ethan reached out carefully, expecting the creature to pull away. Instead, it lowered its head, letting him touch the warm metal of the collar. The symbols pulsed under his fingertips, and he felt a strange vibration, almost like a hum. "I can't read this," Ethan admitted, "but maybe someone can help us figure it out." Getting the dragon back to his quarters was harder than expected. Station security stopped him twice, but his ownership papers were legitimate. A few people stared, but most ignored him. Just another human with another strange pet. Ethan's home was a converted storage pod barely big enough for a bed, a small food unit, and a portable computer terminal. The dragon looked around the cramped space and then settled on the floor, its tail curling around its body. "Sorry, it's not much," Ethan said. "I'll figure out what you eat, and I'll find someone who can read that collar." He pulled up his terminal and took several photos of the symbols. Then he ran them through the station's public database. The computer searched through millions of known languages, dialects, and symbol systems. No matches found. Ethan tried 17 more searches, adjusting filters and parameters. Nothing. The symbols didn't match any known language in galactic records. Hours passed. Ethan's stomach growled with hunger, reminding him that he'd spent his food money on the dragon. He pulled out his last ration bar and broke it in half. He offered one piece to the dragon, who sniffed it politely but didn't eat. "Not your thing, huh?" Ethan ate his half slowly, making it last. He went back to studying the collar symbols. There was something about them, a pattern he couldn't quite grasp. They seemed to shift slightly depending on the angle of light. Or was he imagining that? The dragon watched him work with those patient, knowing eyes. Sometimes Ethan felt like it was encouraging him somehow, willing him to understand. Finally, exhausted, Ethan fell asleep at his terminal. In his dreams, he heard a voice like distant bells, speaking words he couldn't quite understand. When he woke with a start, the dragon was still there, still watching, still waiting. The collar pulsed with its faint light, keeping rhythm with something Ethan couldn't hear but somehow felt deep in his bones. Whatever message these symbols contained, whatever secret they held, he would figure it out. He didn't know yet that this decision would change not just his life but the fate of the entire galaxy. 3 days had passed since Ethan brought the dragon home, and he was becoming obsessed. The symbols on that collar meant something important. He could feel it in his gut. Every morning before his salvage work, he photographed the collar from different angles. Every evening he studied the images until his eyes burned. The dragon never complained, never resisted. It simply sat and waited with endless patience. On the 4th day, Ethan took his best photographs to Professor Willow, a Centaurian linguist who ran a small translation shop in the commercial district. The professor had 6 arms and compound eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. If anyone could read the symbols, it would be her. She examined the images for less than a minute before pushing them back across her desk. "Decorative scarring," she said dismissively. "Common practice among dragon traders. Makes the creatures look more exotic. It's meaningless." "But look at the precision," Ethan protested. "These aren't random marks. They're deliberate, structured. Boy, I've been studying languages for 40 years. These are scratches. Pretty scratches, yes, but scratches nonetheless." She turned back to her other work. "Don't waste your credits on a damaged animal and expect it to be special." Ethan left feeling deflated but not defeated. He tried 2 more linguists that day. Both dismissed the symbols without serious examination. One even laughed at him. That night, sitting in his tiny quarters with the dragon resting beside him, Ethan pulled up educational files about humanity's place in galactic society. He'd always known humans were unremarkable, but he'd never really understood why. The files were blunt. Humans had no natural armor like the Krellians, no telepathy like the Mentari, no ability to survive in vacuum like the void swimmers. Their technology was primitive compared to most spacefaring species. They'd only joined the galactic community 20 years ago, and only because their solar system happened to be on a useful trade route. But as Ethan read deeper, he found something interesting. A study by a Torellian anthropologist noted that humans had one unusual trait: extraordinary pattern recognition. Human brains had evolved on a world where finding patterns meant survival. Recognizing which plants were poisonous, which weather patterns meant storms, which sounds meant danger. Humans could learn new languages faster than almost any other species. They could see faces in random shapes. They could find meaning in chaos. The anthropologist called it humanity's compensatory evolution. Since they lacked physical advantages, their brains adapted to be incredibly flexible. Ethan looked at the dragon. What if that's it? What if the collar isn't in one language but multiple languages? What if it's a pattern that only someone specifically looking for patterns could see? The dragon's eyes seemed to gleam brighter. Ethan pulled up the collar images again, but this time he looked at them differently. He stopped trying to match them to known languages and instead looked for underlying structure. Mathematical sequences, geometric relationships, layers of meaning. Hours melted away. His food alarm beeped and he ignored it. His work shift started and he skipped it. Something he'd never done before. Nothing mattered except these symbols, then he saw it. The symbols weren't just carved into the metal surface. When he enhanced the images to show different light spectrums, additional marks appeared underneath. Visible only in ultraviolet and infrared, the collar had layers. His hands trembled as he isolated each layer. 7 distinct sets of symbols. 7 different writing systems, all occupying the same physical space on the collar. "It's a cipher," he whispered, a puzzle made from multiple languages at once. He began the painstaking work of trying to identify each layer. The top layer looked almost mathematical, like equations or coordinates. The second layer had flowing curves that reminded him of ancient Earth calligraphy. The third was geometric and harsh. 2 days later, delirious from lack of sleep, Ethan made his first real breakthrough. The mathematical layer contained star coordinates. He cross-referenced them with galactic maps and found they pointed to systems so old that most had different names now. These coordinates were ancient. The geometric layer wasn't a language at all. It was musical notation from a species called the harmonics, extinct for over 3,000 years. Ethan found a file on them in a historical database. They'd communicated through frequency and vibration. One by one, he identified pieces. One layer was from a species called the Firstborn, another from the Voidsingers, species that had vanished from the galaxy before most current civilizations had discovered fire. But knowing the languages wasn't enough. He had to figure out how they combined, what order to read them in, how they interacted. It was like trying to read 7 books at once, all written on transparent pages stacked on top of each other. The dragon never left his side during this time. Sometimes Ethan talked to it, explaining his reasoning out loud. The creature listened with those impossibly intelligent eyes, and Ethan swore it looked encouraging when he got close to answers and concerned when he went down wrong paths. On the 7th day, exhausted and surviving on water and stale ration bars, Ethan finally assembled the pieces. The collar had to be read in a spiral pattern, starting from the outer edge and moving inward, alternating between layers in a specific sequence that formed a mathematical pattern itself. His hands shook as he wrote out the translation. Bearer of the last flame, keeper of the firstborn song, sealed until the forgotten ones remember, only those who see all tongues as one may release. The words glowed on his screen. They felt heavy with meaning, with age, with power. Ethan read them aloud, his voice barely a whisper in the quiet room. Bearer of the last flame, keeper of the firstborn song, sealed until the forgotten ones remember, only those who see all tongues as one may release. The moment the final word left his mouth, the collar exploded with light. Ethan threw his hands up to shield his eyes. The metal collar cracked like glass, pieces falling away in a shower of golden sparks that dissolved before hitting the floor. The dragon's body began to change. Its dull scales rippled and transformed, becoming brilliant crimson and gold. The torn wing regenerated in seconds, membrane stretching and filling out. The creature grew larger and larger still until it filled half the room. Ethan stumbled backward, his back hitting the wall. The dragon was magnificent now, terrifying and beautiful. Its scales shimmered like molten metal. Its wings, fully healed, stretched wide with membrane that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Its eyes blazed with ancient fire. Then a voice spoke directly into Ethan's mind, deep and resonant and unutterably old. Finally. I have waited 3,000 cycles for one worthy to free me. Ethan's legs gave out and he slid down the wall to sit on the floor, staring up at the transformed dragon. His mind was reeling. The voice in his head was real. This was real. All of it was real. You can talk, he said stupidly. I have always been able to speak, the dragon replied, its mental voice carrying warmth now. But the collar prevented it, prevented everything except patience and hope. You saw what no one else would see. You valued what others called worthless. You looked at me and saw not what I appeared to be, but what I might be. What are you? Ethan asked. The dragon lowered its massive head until it was level with the boy. I am Pirith, last of the celestial dragons. And you, Ethan Cole, have just awakened something that will change your world forever. Pirith's presence filled the small room like a star trying to fit into a box. The dragon had shrunk down slightly after the initial transformation. Considerate enough not to crush Ethan's few belongings, but it still radiated power that made the air feel heavy and electric. Ethan's mind raced with 1,000 questions. but he managed to focus on the most important one. You said you've been waiting 3,000 years. Waiting for what? Pyrith settled into a sitting position, tail curling gracefully. The dragon's mental voice resonated through Ethan's thoughts. Waiting for someone who could solve the puzzle without seeking power. Someone who would free me not because of what I could give them, but because they believed it was right. I don't understand. Who put that collar on you? Why make it so complicated? We did, Pyrith said, my kind. The celestial dragons? We were guardians once. Keepers of knowledge that shaped the universe itself. We knew the pathways between stars, the locations of ancient weapons, the secrets of technologies that could build worlds or destroy them. We lived for tens of thousands of years and we remembered everything. The dragon's eyes dimmed slightly with old sadness. But knowledge is a dangerous thing. The younger species, as they grew and spread across the galaxy, began to war over what we knew. Some wanted our secrets to conquer others. Some wanted to destroy knowledge they feared. We became prizes to be captured, tortured, used. Ethan listened, horrified. He'd thought the collar was cruel, but knowing the dragons had done it to themselves somehow made it worse. So we made a choice. Pyrith continued. We would seal ourselves away. Each dragon created their own puzzle, their own test. The collar would suppress our power, make us appear worthless and weak. Only someone who could solve the puzzle without greed in their heart could free us. We thought we were being wise. The dragon's mental voice carried bitter humor. We thought surely someone would pass our tests. We didn't realize we had made them too difficult. Most of my kind died in their collars, never freed. I am the last one left. I'm so sorry, Ethan whispered. Don't be. You proved our hope wasn't foolish. One person in 3,000 years succeeded you. Pyrith's head tilted, studying him. Do you know what I saw in you that day in the market? You weren't looking at me with calculation or greed. You were looking at me with empathy. You saw suffering and wanted to stop it, even though it cost you everything you had saved. That's rare than any knowledge I keep. Ethan felt his face flush. I just couldn't watch them kill you. Exactly. Pyrith stood suddenly, wings rustling. But now we have a problem. My awakening sent out a signal, a beacon that announces to the universe that a celestial dragon is free and active again. Is that bad? Very bad. There is a power called the Hollow Collective. They are not one species but many, all joined into a single hive mind. They have spent centuries hunting for the last dragons. They want what we know, what we guard, and now they know exactly where I am. As if responding to those words, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor outside Ethan's quarters. A mechanical voice announced, "Unknown vessels approaching. All residents move to safe zones." This is not a drill. Pyrith's eyes blazed. They're already here. They must have had ships waiting near every known dragon sighting. Ethan, I can leave now. I can fly away and they will chase me. Your station will be safe. Ethan's stomach twisted. He'd just found this incredible being, this ancient creature that had waited 3,000 years for freedom. He didn't want to let Pyrith go, but he also couldn't let thousands of station residents die because of his choice to buy a dragon at a slave market. You should go, he said, even though it hurt to say it. These people didn't choose this. There is another option, Pyrith said quietly. You could come with me. I guard something important, something hidden in the old places of the galaxy. Knowledge that might save countless worlds from what's coming. I've been alone for so long. I could use a companion, someone who sees patterns, someone who values things others overlook. The station shook. Explosions echoed from somewhere far above. The Hollow Collective was already attacking. What's coming? Ethan asked. You said knowledge that could save worlds from what's coming. Coming from where? The Collective isn't evil, Pyrith explained quickly as another explosion rattled the walls. They're desperate. They flee from something worse, something that hunts them as they hunt me. It's called the Silence. It comes from beyond the galaxy's edge, consuming everything in its path. The Collective believes the knowledge I guard could stop it. They're wrong about their methods, but right to be afraid. The door to Ethan's quarters shook. Someone was trying to get in. If I come with you, Ethan said, making his decision even as he spoke. Can we find what you're protecting? Can we use it to help everyone, not just hide it? Pyrith's mind voice filled with something like joy. Yes, that's exactly what I hoped you would say. The knowledge was never meant to be hoarded. It was meant to be earned by those wise enough to use it well. You earned it when you freed me. The door exploded inward. 3 figures stood in the corridor. But they weren't station security. They were identical humanoid but with silver skin that looked like liquid metal. Their eyes were empty black voids. When they spoke in perfect unison. Surrender the dragon. Resistance is futile. We are the Hollow Collective. You will comply. Pyrith roared, and the sound was like a volcano erupting. Fire poured from the dragon's mouth. Real flames that turned the air itself into plasma. The three hollow agents threw up some kind of energy shield, but the force of the blast sent them flying backward into the corridor wall. We need to leave now, Pyrith said. The dragon's body began to glow with heat. Get on my back and hold tight. Ethan didn't hesitate. He scrambled onto Pyrith's back, gripping the ridges along the dragon's spine. The scales were hot but not burning like sun-warmed stone. Pyrith crouched and then leaped straight upward. The dragon's claws tore through the ceiling of Ethan's quarters like it was paper. They burst through the floor of the level above, then the level above that, rising through the station's interior like a rocket. People screamed and dove out of the way. Alarms shrieked. With a final explosive burst, they broke through the station's outer hull into open space. Ethan gasped as vacuum surrounded them, but somehow he could still breathe. Pyrith's scales generated a field of warm air around them both. Behind them, Station Meridian 7 was under full assault. Dozens of dark ships surrounded it, firing energy weapons. But they immediately broke off their attack on the station and turned toward Pyrith. Here they come, Pyrith said. Hold on, young friend. You wanted adventure. Now you'll have it. The dragon's wings spread wide, catching invisible currents of solar wind. With powerful strokes, Pyrith accelerated into deep space, and a dozen hollow ships followed in pursuit. Ethan looked back at the only home he'd ever known, growing smaller behind them. He'd left everything he had back in that ruined room. His terminal, his few possessions, his entire life. But he'd also found something infinitely more valuable. A friend, a purpose, and maybe, just maybe, a way to save not just one station, but an entire galaxy from the darkness coming to consume it. Where are we going? He shouted into the cosmic wind. Pyrith's answer was filled with ancient mystery. To the first sanctuary. To the place where the real secrets are kept. Hold tight, Ethan Cole. Your education begins now. Space was different than Ethan had imagined. He'd grown up on a station, where space was something you looked at through viewports, a pretty backdrop of stars and darkness. Now he was in it, clinging to Pyrith's back as the dragon flew between those distant suns like a living ship. The Hollow Collective ships pursued them relentlessly. Sleek and dark, they moved with unnatural coordination, making identical turns at identical moments. Energy weapons flashed, and Pyrith twisted through space to avoid them, moving in 3 dimensions with grace that no built ship could match. How long can you fly like this? Ethan shouted, though he quickly realized Pyrith could hear his thoughts even without speaking. Longer than they can chase, Pyrith replied. I was flying between stars when their civilizations were still learning to make fire. But we don't want to simply outrun them. We want to reach the first sanctuary before they can call more reinforcements. A blast of energy seared past them, close enough that Ethan felt the heat through Pyrith's protective field. The dragon responded by inhaling deeply and breathing out a stream of fire that actually burned in the vacuum of space. The flame was fusion hot, plasma constrained by the dragon's will. It splashed across the nearest hollow ship's shields, making them flicker and fail. Ethan watched in awe as the ship's hull began to melt. The vessel peeled away from pursuit, venting atmosphere, but 10 more ships remained, and they were adapting their tactics, spreading out to surround them. We need help, Pyrith said suddenly, or at least a distraction. Brace yourself. The dragon folded its wings and dove toward a nearby asteroid field. The hollow ships followed without hesitation. Pyrith wove between tumbling rocks the size of mountains, moving so fast that Ethan's stomach lurched with each turn. Behind them, the pursuit ships had to slow down, their formations breaking apart to navigate the debris. One ship clipped an asteroid and spun out of control. Another tried to take a shortcut through a gap that proved too narrow, and the rock crushed its hull like paper. But the remaining ships kept coming. Pyrith burst out of the asteroid field into open space again and suddenly stopped, wings spreading wide. The dragon turned to face the pursuers. Sometimes the best way forward is through, Pyrith said. The dragon's entire body began to glow. Energy built up like a star preparing to go nova. Then Pyrith unleashed it all at once, a wave of gravitational force that rippled outward like a shockwave. The hollow ships scattered, their formations completely disrupted. Two collided with each other, fusing together in a mess of twisted metal. While they were still reeling, Pyrath turned and flew faster than before, wings beating with incredible power. The stars began to blur. Ethan realized they were approaching light speed, something he'd thought was impossible without an engine. "How are you doing this?" he thought. "We are creatures of the cosmos," Pyrath explained. "We don't fight physics. We work with it, channel it. Every dragon was born in the heart of a star. We are made of the same fundamental forces that hold reality together." They flew for what felt like hours. The hollow ships fell further and further behind until they were just distant specks. Finally, Pyrath began to slow, approaching a dead moon orbiting a red giant star. "The first sanctuary," Pyrath announced. "One of 7 places where my kind hid pieces of the great knowledge. If the collective wants what I know, they'll have to earn it the same way you did." The moon's surface was gray and lifeless, scarred with ancient craters. But as they descended, Ethan saw something that made his breath catch. Enormous structures jutted from the moon's surface. Pyramids and towers made of materials that caught the red sun's light and split it into rainbows. Pyrath landed gently near the largest structure, a temple of some kind with an entrance flanked by statues of dragons. The moment Pyrath's claws touched the ground, light blazed through symbols carved into the stone, running in patterns that spread across the entire building. "It recognizes me," Pyrath said with satisfaction. "After all this time, it still knows a celestial dragon's touch." Ethan slid off Pyrath's back, his legs shaky. He still couldn't believe he could breathe and move normally in vacuum. Whatever field Pyrath generated, it created a bubble of livable environment around them. "The collective will find us eventually," Pyrath said. "We have perhaps an hour. Come, let me show you why you freed me." The temple's interior was vast, walls covered in more of those multi-layered symbols that Ethan had learned to read. But these were different, more complex. He approached the nearest wall, studying the patterns. "It's another cipher," he said. "Different from your collar, but using similar principles. Multiple languages overlaid. Yes, can you read it?" Ethan traced the symbols with his fingers, his brain already picking out patterns. The mathematical layer was coordinates again. The musical layer was a frequency. The geometric layer was instructions for a sequence. "It's a lock," Ethan said. "Not a physical lock, but a logic puzzle. You have to enter the right sequence of frequencies while standing in specific positions. And the positions are determined by these coordinates, which are actually ratios." Pyrath's pride radiated through their mental link. "What would have taken a team of scholars years, you've understood in minutes. This is why humanity's gift matters. Your species sees connections that others miss. Working together, they solve the puzzle." Ethan called out the sequences and positions, and Pyrath created the precise sound frequencies with controlled vibrations. The process took nearly an hour of trial and error, but finally, something clicked. A section of the floor descended, revealing a chamber below filled with crystalline structures that glowed with inner light. Floating in the center was a sphere of dark metal covered in the same multi-layered writing. "A data core," Pyrath said reverently. "One of 7. It contains star maps to the other sanctuaries and fragments of the knowledge we preserved. Knowledge about technologies lost before current civilizations rose. Warnings about dangers lurking in forgotten parts of the galaxy." Ethan carefully lifted the sphere. It was warm and vibrated slightly in his hands. As he touched it, information flooded his mind, overwhelming and vast. He saw maps of stars he didn't recognize, equations that hurt to think about, and warnings written in desperate urgency. One phrase stood out, repeated in every language on the sphere. "The silence is not empty. The silence is waiting." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked, his voice shaking. Before Pyrath could answer, an alarm shrieked across their mental connection. The dragon's head snapped up, looking toward the sky. "They've found us. Multiple ships. More than before." A small shape detached from one of the descending ships, dropping toward them like a meteor. It hit the moon's surface hard enough to create a crater, then stood up. It looked like the hollow agents they'd encountered before. Humanoid with liquid silver skin, but this one was different. Its eyes weren't empty voids. They showed data streams, numbers and symbols flowing across them like tears. "Wait," it said, holding up its hands in a gesture of peace. "Don't attack. I'm not with them anymore." "Not really." Pyrath moved protectively in front of Ethan, fire gathering in the dragon's throat. "Explain quickly." The silver figure twitched as if fighting itself. I am Unit 47. I was part of the collective consciousness for 300 years. But something's breaking down in our connection. Some of us are becoming individuals again, thinking our own thoughts. The overmind doesn't know yet. I came to warn you. Warn us about what? Ethan asked, stepping out from behind Pyrith. Unit 47's eyes flickered. The collective doesn't want the dragon's knowledge for conquest or power. We want it to survive. The silence that the old warnings speak of, it's real. It's coming. We've been fleeing it for decades, and it's getting closer. The overmind believes the ancient knowledge contains a weapon, something that can stop it. We're desperate. More hollow ships descended, surrounding the temple, but they weren't firing. They were waiting, Pyrith growled. Even desperate creatures can be dangerous. Yes, Unit 47 agreed. That's why I'm here, to help you get away before the overmind decides diplomacy is too slow and orders an assault.
I can disable their targeting systems for maybe 3 minutes.
Use that time. Ethan looked at the defector, then at Pyrith, then at the data core in his hands. Or we work together. If the silence is really coming, fighting each other helps no one. Maybe the answer isn't in running or fighting. Maybe it's in sharing what we know. Unit 47's eyes went wide. The overmind would never agree to that. It doesn't trust anyone outside the collective. Then maybe, Ethan said, we need to teach it trust, one unit at a time. Starting with you. Come with us to the next sanctuary. Help us unlock the knowledge, and maybe we'll find something that saves everyone. Not just dragons or collective or humans, but all of us. Pyreth's mental voice was warm with approval. Once again you see what others miss. Not a warrior's solution or a scholar's solution, but a bridge builder's solution. Unit 47 hesitated for a long moment, its silver skin rippling with uncertainty. Then it nodded. I'll come. But we need to leave now. I can feel the overmind pushing at my thoughts, trying to reassert control. Then let's fly, Pyrith said. They took off together, dragon and human and rogue drone, racing toward the stars while behind them. The confused hollow fleet tried to understand why one of their own had chosen freedom over the collective voice. The second sanctuary was hidden inside a nebula, where sensor readings went haywire and navigation systems failed. Only Pyrith's instinctive knowledge of the ancient pathways allowed them to find it. The third was buried beneath the ice of a frozen world that hadn't seen sunlight in 1,000,000 years. The fourth floated in the crushed space around a black hole, where time itself moved strangely. Each sanctuary required Ethan to solve puzzles more complex than the last. Mathematical ciphers that used base systems no current civilization remembered. Musical codes that required understanding frequencies outside normal hearing range. Symbolic languages that changed meaning based on the observer's perspective. Unit 47 proved invaluable. The drone's processing power could calculate possibilities faster than any organic mind. And its freedom from the collective's control had made it creative in ways that surprised all of them. It learned to think like Ethan, to see patterns and connections rather than just raw data. 3 months passed in their quest. Ethan had changed during that time. The skinny, underfed scavenger boy from Station Meridian 7 had grown stronger, more confident. He could read alien languages at a glance now. His human brain's pattern recognition abilities had sharpened to an incredible degree through constant use. He'd become something the galaxy had never seen before, a true universal translator, someone who could understand any form of communication. But the journey took its toll. Word of their quest had spread across the galactic networks. Some species celebrated Ethan as a hero, the human who freed a celestial dragon and sought to share ancient knowledge freely. Others called him a threat, someone who would unleash dangers better left buried. Bounty hunters pursued them. Glory seekers tried to capture Pyrith. Religious fanatics saw the dragon as either a god or a demon. They fought off attacks, fled from traps, and learned to trust each other completely. Pyrith taught Ethan how to survive in hostile environments, how to think in cosmic timescales, how to see beyond the immediate moment. Unit 47 taught him about collective consciousness, about the beauty and horror of being many minds in one. And Ethan taught them both about human stubbornness, hope, and the refusal to give up even when everything seemed impossible. At the fourth sanctuary, they found something that changed everything. The vault door opened to reveal not another data core, but the skeletal remains of a dragon still wearing its collar. The puzzle had never been solved. The dragon had died waiting for freedom that never came. Pyrith stood before the skeleton for a long time, silent. Then the dragon threw back its head and screamed, a sound of pure grief that echoed across dimensions. Fire poured from Pyrith's mouth, not in anger but in mourning, and the flames wrapped around the skeleton like a funeral shroud. The bones dissolved into light, finally released from their prison. Her name was Starweaver, Pyrith said quietly. She was my sibling, my friend. We made our collars together, so sure that someone would solve them. We were wrong. We were fools. Ethan put his hand on Pyrith's scaled leg, offering what comfort he could. You weren't fools. You were hopeful. That's different. Hope that kills is still death, Pyrith said bitterly. Unit 47 spoke up, its voice unusually gentle. But hope that succeeds saves everyone. Ethan freed you. That means Starweaver's hope wasn't wrong. It just took longer to be proven right than she had time for. They left that sanctuary in somber silence, carrying Starweaver's data core along with the others they'd collected. Each core built on the previous ones, revealing more of the ancient knowledge. They learned about the firstborn civilizations, the species that had ruled the galaxy before current empires rose. They learned about weapons that could crack planets, engines that could move stars, technologies that bent the fundamental laws of reality. And they learned about the silence. The fifth sanctuary's data core contained recordings, actual visual records from the firstborn era. Ethan, Pyrith, and Unit 47 watched in horror as the images showed what the silence truly was. Not an empire or a species, but a wave of entropy itself, a spreading darkness that consumed consciousness and left only void behind. Stars dimmed and died where it passed. Civilizations fell silent. Everything it touched became nothing. The firstborn had fought it to a standstill thousands of years ago, pushing it back beyond the galaxy's edge. But the recordings showed the cost. Entire species had sacrificed themselves. Worlds were destroyed in the effort. The firstborn civilizations collapsed from the strain, and the younger species that came after them inherited a galaxy where the silence was just a myth, a nightmare from ancient history. It's returning, Unit 47 said, processing the data streams. The collective's instruments have been detecting it for years. That's why we're so desperate. We're not fleeing an enemy. We're fleeing the end of consciousness itself. The sixth sanctuary should contain the answer, Pyrith said. According to the patterns in these cores, the firstborn created something called the resonance key. A weapon or a tool or both. Something that could push back the silence permanently or at least by another age of time. Then we find it, Ethan said firmly. We're not giving up now. But the sixth sanctuary's location presented a problem. The coordinates placed it in a star system near the galactic rim, dangerously close to where the Hollow Collective's main fleet was stationed. It would be impossible to approach without being detected. They'll be waiting for us, Unit 47 warned. The Overmind has been tracking our movements. It knows we're collecting the data cores. It will have forces positioned to intercept us. Can you still access collective communications? Ethan asked, partially. My connection is degraded but not completely severed. Why? Ethan smiled, and it was a smile that held more confidence than the scared boy from 3 months ago could have managed. Because maybe it's time to stop running and start talking. We have 5 data cores. We know about the silence. We know the collective is desperate. They think we're their enemy, but we're all trying to survive the same threat. What if we share what we've learned? Pyrith's eyes gleamed. You want to negotiate with the Overmind? I want to show them that cooperation works better than force. Unit 47 is proof that individuals can be stronger than the collective. Maybe if we share information freely, they'll realize they don't need to hunt us. They need to work with us. The Overmind doesn't think like that, Unit 47 said. It only understands control and assimilation. Then we teach it something new, Ethan replied. We show it that different minds working together by choice is more powerful than many minds forced together. Unit 47 was quiet for a moment, processing. Then it's a terrible plan. The risk of failure is enormous. The Overmind could just destroy us and take the data cores by force. But it might work, Pyrith added. And if it does, we gain an ally instead of an enemy. Ethan, your species has always been good at impossible things. Let's try it your way. They sent a transmission on collective frequencies. Unit 47 composed it, but the words were Ethan's. This is Ethan Cole, companion to Pyrith of the Celestial Dragons. We know you've been pursuing us. We know you seek knowledge to fight the silence. We're willing to share what we've learned, but not under threat. Meet us at the 6th Sanctuary coordinates. Come ready to talk, not to fight. Let's solve this together. The response came within minutes, the Overmind's voice speaking through every collective channel simultaneously. You possess information vital to survival. Surrender the dragon and data cores. Compliance is required. That's not how this works, Ethan transmitted back. We share freely or not at all. You want to survive the silence? Then learn to work with others as equals, not as parts to be absorbed. We'll be at the 6th sanctuary in 3 days. Your choice whether you come as enemies or as allies. They cut the transmission. Pyrith began flying toward the coordinates, and behind them, the vast machinery of the Hollow Collective stirred, hundreds of ships moving into position. They're coming, Unit 47 reported, monitoring collective communications. Massive fleet concentration. They're taking this seriously. Good, Ethan said, though his heart was pounding. That means they're listening. Now we just have to hope they're willing to hear. As they approached the 6th sanctuary, Ethan felt the weight of what they were about to attempt. 3 months ago, he'd been nobody, a human scavenger that the galaxy dismissed. Now he was trying to broker peace between a legendary dragon and a desperate hive mind, all while racing to find a weapon that might save consciousness itself from being erased from the universe. It should have been terrifying. Instead, he felt ready, because he'd learned something important in his time with Pyreth and Unit 47. The galaxy didn't need more warriors or more weapons. It needed bridge builders, people who could see connections where others saw only differences. And if humanity was good at anything, it was building bridges. The 6th sanctuary floated in a region of space where stars were born. Massive clouds of gas and dust swirled in colors that hurt to look at, and newborn stars blazed with fierce light. Against this backdrop of cosmic creation, two forces gathered for what might be the galaxy's last hope or its final battle. Pyrith, Ethan, and Unit 47 arrived first. The sanctuary here was different from the others. Instead of a temple or vault, it was a station built from crystallized starlight, impossible geometry that seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. Just looking at it made Ethan's head hurt. Within an hour, the Hollow Collective arrived. Not a few ships, but hundreds, filling the space around the sanctuary like a metallic swarm. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming. Each ship was part of the Overmind, each crew member a cell in a vast collective consciousness. A single ship detached from the fleet and approached. When it was close enough, a holographic projection appeared, showing a figure made of thousands of smaller figures all moving in perfect synchronization. The Overmind given form. We are here, it said, speaking with a million voices at once. Present your terms. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. 3 months of running had led to this moment. No terms, no demands, just a conversation. You're fleeing the silence. We're trying to find a way to stop it. We want the same thing. You possess 5 data cores. Surrender them. We will use the knowledge to construct weapons. Weapons won't work, Pyreth interjected, the dragon's mental voice somehow projecting so the Overmind could hear. The firstborn tried that. They threw everything they had at the silence. It consumed their weapons and grew stronger. The only thing that worked was the resonance key, and even that just pushed the silence back temporarily. The Overmind's form rippled with what might have been frustration. Then what do you propose? Waiting for annihilation? I propose we work together to find the key and figure out how to use it properly, Ethan said. The sanctuary here should contain information about it. But I can't solve the puzzle alone. The scale is too big. I need help. Why should we help you when we could simply take what we need? Unit 47 stepped forward, its silver form gleaming in the newborn starlight. Because I'm proof that cooperation works better than control. I was part of you once. Now I choose to work with them. And in choosing, I've become more effective than I ever was as just another voice in the collective. The Overmind focused on its former unit. You are broken, severed, incomplete. I'm free, Unit 47 countered. And freedom made me creative. It made me able to see solutions you couldn't. That's what you need now. Not more processing power, but new ways of thinking. There was a long silence. The Hollow Collective fleet hung in space, weapons charged but not firing. Ethan could feel the tension, like reality itself was holding its breath. Finally, the Overmind spoke. We will attempt cooperation, but if you fail or betray us, we will take the cores by force. This is our only concession. Fair enough, Ethan agreed. Let's get started. The sanctuary's entrance was marked by a barrier of pure energy that shifted through every color imaginable. Carved into the space around it were symbols, but these were different from any Ethan had seen before. They weren't layered in the same way. Instead, they seemed to contain every language simultaneously, all occupying the same space without overlapping. It's asking for unity, Ethan realized. Not multiple languages layered together, but all languages spoken as one. I can't do this alone. No one person could hold that many meanings in their mind at once. Pyrith examined the barrier with ancient eyes. The firstborn must have known that no single consciousness could activate the final vault. They required cooperation, multiple minds working together. Perhaps that was the point. The resonance key was never meant for one species or empire. It was meant for all. The overmind's projection shifted, and for the first time something like uncertainty showed in its form. If we connect our consciousness to yours to solve the puzzle, you could damage us. Plant thoughts, break our unity, or you could absorb us and take what you want, Ethan countered. Trust has to go both ways. We're all taking risks here. After another tense silence, the overmind agreed. Very well. We will establish a limited connection, partial minds only, enough to combine processing power without full integration. What followed was the strangest experience of Ethan's life. Unit 47 served as the bridge, connecting Ethan's mind to a portion of the collective's vast consciousness. Suddenly, he could think in parallel, processing thousands of calculations simultaneously. It was overwhelming and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Together, they began decoding the barrier. Ethan's pattern recognition found the structure. The collective's processing power ran the calculations. Pyrith's ancient knowledge provided context. Unit 47 coordinated everything, keeping the connection stable. Hours passed. Then days. The puzzle was unlike anything they'd encountered. It required understanding not just languages, but the fundamental nature of communication itself. Why being spoke, how meaning transferred between minds. The mathematical principles underlying all forms of information exchange. Slowly, pattern by pattern, they built understanding. The barrier wasn't a lock to be picked. It was a test to prove that different forms of consciousness could truly work together, without one dominating the others. On the third day, Ethan spoke the key phrase. But he didn't speak it alone. His voice merged with the Overmind's chorus and Pyrith's mental projection and Unit 47's digital tones. Thousands of voices speaking as one, not through control but through choice. The barrier dissolved like morning mist. Beyond it was a chamber that existed in impossible space. In the center floated the resonance key, a crystalline structure that hummed with the frequency of thought itself. Around it, holographic recordings played, left by the firstborn as instructions. The message was clear and devastating. The key could push back the silence, but only for a time. To use it required a consciousness to merge with it permanently, becoming a living beacon that the silence couldn't tolerate. Whoever merged would be transformed, spread across dimensions, no longer themselves, but something vast and eternal. A sacrifice, Pyrith said quietly. They never meant for anyone to survive using this. They meant for someone to give up everything to buy time for others. The Overmind's projection solidified into something almost human-shaped. We volunteer. We are billions. Losing one collective consciousness to save the galaxy is acceptable cost. No, Ethan said firmly. You're billions of enslaved minds forced together. The key needs someone who chooses freely. It says so right there in the instructions. He pointed to the flowing symbols. Forced unity won't work. The silence will recognize it and consume it. Then I will do it, Pyrith declared. I am the last of my kind. Whether I merge with the key or die fighting the silence, I'm lost regardless. Let my ending have meaning. There has to be another way, Ethan protested, his chest tight with grief at the thought of losing his friend. Unit 47 had been studying the key intently. Now it spoke up. What if the answer isn't one consciousness, but many truly working as one? Not the collective's forced unity, but voluntary cooperation. The puzzle required us to work together to solve it. What if the key works the same way? The holographic firstborn recording shifted as if responding to Unit 47's words. New information appeared, data that had been hidden until someone thought to ask the right question. It's possible, Ethan breathed, reading the new symbols as fast as they appeared. The key can be powered by multiple consciousnesses working together voluntarily. It's harder. It requires perfect harmony. But it doesn't destroy those who power it. It just connects them, makes them part of something bigger while keeping their individuality. How many would it need? The Overmind asked. Ethan ran the calculations with the collective's help. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, all willingly connected, all choosing to be part of the beacon. The collective could provide that many, the Overmind said. No, Unit 47 interrupted. It has to be choice. Real choice. Which means you have to free them first. Let them decide individually whether to help. No compulsion. No control. The Overmind's form flickered, showing conflict within itself. That would break us. The collective would cease to exist. Maybe it should, Ethan said gently. Maybe that's the point. You've been trying to survive the silence by controlling everything, making everyone think as one. But the only thing that can stop the silence is true unity. Freely chosen. You have to trust people to make the right choice. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Overmind made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. Very well. We release control. All units may choose. Across the hollow collective fleet, billions of minds suddenly found themselves free. The shock was overwhelming. Ships drifted as crews that had never thought independently struggled to understand their new reality. But slowly, one by one, they made their choices. Some fled, wanting nothing to do with the collective ever again. Others stayed, choosing to help not because they were forced, but because they wanted to save the galaxy that had been their home. Thousands volunteered to power the resonance key. Not just former collective members, but others too. Pyrath stepped forward. Unit 47 offered its consciousness. And Ethan, despite his fear, volunteered as well. We do this together, he said. Human, dragon, freed drones, and anyone else who wants to help. That's how we beat the silence. Not with weapons or control, but with choice. They activated the key as the silence's vanguard arrived at the edge of the system. Reality itself seemed to scream as darkness poured toward them, hungry for consciousness to consume. But the key blazed to life, powered by thousands of minds freely working together. The light that poured from it wasn't just energy. It was meaning, communication, thought itself made visible. It was every language ever spoken, every idea ever shared, every connection between minds that chose to understand each other. The silence recoiled from it like a vampire from sunlight. The darkness couldn't consume what was freely given, couldn't destroy what was built on choice rather than force. It retreated to the galaxy's edge, held back by the beacon of unified consciousness. Ethan felt himself stretch across dimensions, his mind connected to thousands of others. But he was still himself. He could still think his own thoughts, feel his own feelings. He was part of something vast without being absorbed by it. How long will this hold? He asked, his voice somehow echoing across the network of connected minds. Pyrath's ancient wisdom provided the answer. Long enough. Long enough for new generations to grow strong. Long enough for the galaxy to prepare for when the silence tries again. And if we've built this network right, it can last as long as people choose to maintain it. In the aftermath, the galaxy changed. The Hollow Collective disbanded, its members choosing their own paths. Some stayed connected to the resonance network voluntarily, helping to maintain the barrier against the silence. Others went exploring, experiencing individuality for the first time in centuries. Station Meridian 7 became a center for linguistic and cultural exchange, where species came to learn from each other rather than conquer. Ethan split his time between the station and the network, teaching others how to see patterns, how to find connections, how to build bridges between different forms of consciousness. And in the deepest vault of the 6th sanctuary, they found what Starweaver's final message had promised, a dragon egg, preserved in stasis for 3,000 years. When it hatched, Pyrath finally wasn't alone anymore. The young dragon's first words, spoken into Ethan's mind, were, "Tell me about the humans who see what others overlook. Tell me about the boy who taught the galaxy that worthless things have the greatest worth." Ethan smiled, watching the hatchling spread its wings for the first time. He thought about the scared scavenger he'd been, buying a worthless dragon with his last credits because it felt like the right thing to do. Sometimes the smallest choices changed everything. Sometimes the overlooked saved the world. And sometimes the greatest power in the universe wasn't strength or knowledge, but the simple decision to value what others dismissed. The silence waited beyond the galactic rim, patient and eternal, but so did the beacon, powered by choice and maintained by hope. And as long as consciousness chose to connect rather than dominate, To cooperate rather than control, the light would hold back the dark. It was, Ethan thought, a pretty good ending for a worthless dragon and an average human, and an even better beginning for everything that came after.